In this video, we're going to focus on how you can create a nice speedometer here with an angle needle here. And if I refresh, you can see it will have this nice rotating effect. So let's start to look how to create a speedometer in Chart.js 4. First of all, we have here a border template, and you can find a border template here on chartjs3.com getting started. Once you scroll down, just copy this chunk of code and you're good to go. Next, if you want to support this channel, check out my Patreon page here, where you can get the source code of this video and many others. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down here and start to work on our donut chart basically, because it's basically a donut chart. So if I refresh this donut chart, remove the scales, because we don't need any scales. There we are. Next, what I want to do here is probably the legend has no value for us. So I'm going to say plugins. Let's say here legend display false. Save. There we are. So now what I want to do, I want to slice this in half, and to do that I'm going to scroll down or scroll a bit up, and then we're going to work on what we call the circumference, which basically define the circle, how far we're going to rotate. I'm going to say 180 degrees because it's like a half slice. What I do need to do is to rotate this 75%, or basically 270 degrees, because this is here, then we go 90, 90, and another 90 is 270. So I'm going to say comma, I'm going to say rotation, set this on 270, save, refresh, there we are. Next, what I want to do is, you can see here we have this upper space and a lower space. We should just remove that as well, or at least make it more condensed. So what I'm going to say here, we're going to say here the aspect ratio, and we're going to change it from number 1, so it's 1 to 1. We're going to set it on 1, or if you do 2, I think 1.8 would be more than enough. So it will have a little bit of space up and down compared to the 2, because the 2 is usually what is being used for the bar chart. But as you can see, it's very tight. If ever you want to have any values between there, you can just change this to your liking. What I do want to do here above is to make these slices a bit more narrow. So what I'm going to say here is, let's see what we call that, is the cutout percentage, or cutout. And then I'm going to say here 95%. Save that, refresh, there we are. And finally, border radius, and give it a nice rounded border, 10 pixels. Save. Now we have these nice rounded edges. Alright, what I'm going to do here is, after the options comma, I'm going to say plugins. And then what I will do here is to make sure we're going to create our own plugin. We're going to call this the gauge needle. Basically, you're going to draw a simple needle in here. I'm going to say constant gauge needle equals, here the ID will be the gauge needle. That's a string number or string value. And then what I want to do is I'm going to say after data sets draw. So after we draw the data sets, which is basically the values here, we will draw this needle. This is very important, not before, because if we do before, the needle will be underneath these items, unless you want that effect. Else, I'm going to recommend you this effect after, so it will be on top of it. I'm going to use some objects here, chart arc and plugins. Then what I will say here is the object destructuring. If you're not familiar with this, please check out my video, Understanding Chart.js Object Destructuring. I'm going to use here the CTX and the data. Those two are more than enough for what we need here. So now, what I want to do is, I want to just draw a simple needle. To draw the simple needle, I'm going to say here, let's make this like that, needle. And then I'm going to say here CTX.begin path, and the begin path here is to draw the item, but I want to say that this shape is independent of anything else, so that's why you have the begin path. Next, what I want to do is I want to indicate the position. I want to, this needle should start here and go up and then go down, or anywhere depending on the rotation. However, let's start with a very straight, simple needle. So I'm going to say CTX.move to, and what I want to do is I want to get the X and Y value, which is this here. So how do we get this? Well, Chart.js has a very nice item. And even before I do that, I want to make sure I have a CTX.save to say all variables above. Then what I want to do here is to say constant, or I'll do a console log first. So I'm going to show you some nice additional information that we can use. We'll say chart.get dataset meta index 0. And then we're going to say here dot data index 0. If I save this, refresh, open up my console log, you will see all the arc elements with their rotation and information. This X and Y here is the key that we need. These are exactly in the center here. Perfectly fit. No matter if you change the aspect ratio, it will always get that exact center here. So this is a very nice and useful item. So what I can do here is, if I say .x, because I want to grab that, and these here for the data, any data here will be same as long as it's in the same arc, because they are all centered. This is the center where the rotation is built on. So that's very important to understand. If you have more data sets, different story, different values, of course. So let's say here x center will be equal to this. Then what I want to do here, constant, and then I will say here the y center will be equal to this value, but then in the y version. So I'm going to grab this, put that in there, grab that, put that in here. So this move tool indicates the starting point. The next thing what I want to do is, of course, to create the item or the triangle. So we're going up, but we want to make sure it's like a little bit of what do you call it? A triangle shape. So I need to go a bit more to the left and then go up. So what we can do here is the move tool. I'm going to say here minus 5 pixels. So I'm going to the left. Or well, let me just show you this. Yes, I'm going to just make here line tool first so you have a visual. And let's say here this will be, I want to have just a straight line going up. So I'm going to say yes, X center and here 100. Then what I want to do here is ctx dot stroke to draw the shape. Save this, refresh, and now you'll see it will work nicely. What I want to do, of course, is say here minus. When I set here with the -5, what will happen? We get this slight slope here, so that works nicely. So what we could do is grab another one, but then we're going to say it will be the same position, except here it will not be -5 but +5, so it will go to the other side. This works, but how do we get this point up here? Well, for that I have another nice piece of information to show you. Again, in this same chart.getDataSetMeta. So if I open up again the arc elements, we get here what we call the outer radius and the inner radius. So what is the difference between the two? The outer radius is the radius basically on this line here. As you can see here, the outer borderline. The inner radius is basically this one here, exactly inside. So what I want to do is I want to go to the outer radius to grab that one, and then I will have the length exactly here nicely on. So what I'm going to do here is say constant outer radius equals, and just grab all of this, put it in there, and then put a dot here, so dot outer radius. Of course, now we have this value here. If I do it like this, it will not work because it will go down. What we could do here is a negative, so we deduct it from there. And of course, I guess there's some tricks here. So don't worry about this. We're going to work on it. I'm going to make it easier because this, we need to basically calculate the outer radius from the X, from the center of the Y. However, all of these tricks here, this here, now it works, but this is quite hard. So I'm going to show you something that we can apply. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change the center point of our circle here. I want to be this as 0 point. So this will be then x0, y0, and after that everything else will be calculated based from this point of view instead of normally here. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to say ctx.translate, and then I'm going to say I want to indicate a new starting point as 0, which is the x and y here. It's basically like a scale, like a linear scale where you have a center, like the 0 point somewhere in the center. That will be now the new center. But by doing that, of course, everything will work weird. Well, I need to have here ctx.restore. We need to make sure we restore it so it doesn't give this crazy animation. All right, but our position is gone now. Don't worry about it, because this here has become now the 0 point. So we're going to say here 0, 0, 0, and then just here we can just delete this and just say here negative outer radius 0 and 0. This makes it just easier. There we are. Absolutely wonderful, quite simple. Next thing what I want to do is you can see here the tooltip is slightly blocking my view. Maybe if you are like me, maybe you want to point a little bit more down inside the slice. Right now it's just exactly to the top of the border. That is fine if you want that. If you say, well, I would like to have it a little bit more down or overlapping it even more, you could say for the outer radius, maybe plus 5 pixels. If you do that, as you can see here, now it will become like that. Or you can say here, what I prefer, negative, I guess negative 6 would be more than enough. There we are. So just somewhere in the center of the slice. So now what I want to do, of course, is have a color. So we have a few things like ctx.stroke style. I guess that's already black, but just give it dark gray. Dark gray. Then what I want to do is I want to have a fill color. So I'm going to have filler, fill style, but of course we need to have ctx.fill to draw the filling shape. Now we have this here, dark gray looks alright. Maybe we should even have it black. Doesn't matter for now. So now we have this here. What about the circle? Let's build the circle now. So I'm going to say here the dot, I guess, the needle dot. We're going to say a ctx.begin path. Why? I want to say that this is independent. Although it's somehow dependent, we could make it completely connected, but this is the easiest way to do it. And then all we need here is basically to fill up, because we want to have the style. And this fill will be ctx.arc, because we're going to create the arc here. However, our translation here, or translate, is still set on this. So what I'm going to do here is our starting point is now 0, 0. Very simple. 0, 0. So let me just break this down. So we have the x and y. We have what we call here the radius of the circle. So how many pixels in size we want it, or well, like this is like based on the radius of the circle is like a half. So if you have 10 pixels, it would be, the circle will be in total of 20 pixels in from one side to the other side. So remember that. And then we have here the or diameter. So that's the diameter of that, if I'm not mistaken. Then we have here the let me see here, the starting angle, start angle, and end angle. And then we have here, we want counterclockwise. In this case, counterclockwise is false. We just want to have a full circle here. So what I'm going to do here to make it very simple, this of course will be 0, because we have this here already translated to 0. The radius here, let's say we want to have maybe 5 pixels. Alright, and then we have here the starting angle. So what we can do for the starting angle, I'm going to use very simple math.pi. We can do 0 and 2. Let's see if that would work. Then we do that. Alright. Let's see here what we have to do here. I guess the restore can be moved down, because I notice it is restoring and resets the translation. So if I save that, there we are. And then I can see the circle is not working. So what I want to do here is math.pi times this, math.pi multiplied by 2. You should have a full circle. There you are. You can see now it looks quite nice. You could make it bigger. Save, refresh, and that looks quite nice. Alright, so now we have this. What we need to work on now is the rotation. So let's start to work on how do we rotate the item. And we have here this math.pi formula. What I can do here, because I'll be using this anyway, angle equals math.pi. So we can say here this, and then we can just say here angle. There we are. So I save that, same story. The reason why I'm going to use this, and if you look at many of my other videos, I use like the degree, 100 degree, 180 degree. In this case, I'm going to use meta_pi because it's slightly easier for me to use, although it's still a very confusing item. So what I want to do is, because now we're pointing at this point here, yes, so that would basically mean that this here is being calculated, whatever this amount is. Well, in this case, I know the amount. This is 69. And then what I want to do is, whatever the needle value is, that's where we're going to point. To make it simple, I'm going to say here, needle value. And the needle value will be, let's say, 69 divided by 2. That will be this item. That will be exactly in the center. So what I want to do now, first of all, is get the value of it. So what I'm going to say here, constant, let's say data total, the total amount of data that we have will be what exactly. So what I'm going to do is basically sum the array. So I'm going to use the reduce method. So we say data sets index 0.data, and then we can say dot reduce. And what I want to do, of course, is I want to say a value when the b value, function error expression, and then what we can say here, oh, we can do it like this immediately. We're going to say here a plus b, whatever b will be, will keep on adding up, and then we start with 0. So it's first 0, and then a will be 0 plus whatever b is, and b will be then, of course, all the values here in the data, and then it keeps on adding it up. To make sure this works, I want to see a console log of the data total. Save, refresh, open up the developer tab, and you can see you get the value of 69. So once I have this, what I do need to know next is basically whatever the needle value is, and then we have to start to rotate this one. So how do we rotate this one? This is a bit of a tricky part here, but what we need to have here is a let value, and we're going to calculate a circumference. And the circumference in this case is the rotation, but the rotation that we have is slightly different. Let me explain why. There's a circumference built in here. Let me just show you. Maybe this is the circumference. I probably need to have a different term for it, but it doesn't matter. Pay attention here. I'm going to show you the value that we get. If I refresh this, you see this animation here. I'm going to borrow from this slice, specifically the animation numbers. But this slice has a rotation that is maybe, I don't know, like 25%, 30% of it. So what I need to do is I need to go back to how many percent it is, put it back to 0, and then calculate that based on whatever our selection would be based on this value here. Sounds all complicated, I know. But let me just show you first. Say chart.get get data set meta index 0 dot data index 0, and then we can just say here, I'll just get this circumference immediately. There we are. Save that, refresh. You can see here this animation, and I see here there's a lot of console logs. I want to remove anything else we don't need. There we are. This animation here is calculated, and this is like a pi. How many pi exactly? Well, it is 0.8 pi. 1 pi would be, I guess, a full circle, or a half circle, sorry. And I don't, well, I guess I don't want to go, I don't want to delve too deep into this because I am also confused by it. Doesn't matter. What we need here is basically this information I need to know, because I need to know whatever this rotation is. I need to go back to its source, and then, because this I need to divide by 18. Whatever the rotation is, divide by 18, because that's the value of this, and then multiply whatever one value is by the value that we have for the needle. So if the needle is 50%, it's basically like that. Start to grab that value, and it will understand how to rotate exactly half of it. So to do this, what I need to do here is, let me think here. Let's say well, I just say we have this let circumference. I'll just grab it here. I have no better name for it, so my bad. It will be equal. And then we're going to create here a formula, and the formula will be chart.get dataset meta index 0 dot data 0, and then dot circumference. Then we're going to divide this, because basically what we have here, we know how many this is. We need to divide because this is a math.py formula. So it's a math.py, and then divide by 1 exactly. Well, I want to get basically the value of this 18. Grab the 18, divide that, 0, and once I did this, I need to eventually calculate, well, let's see, let's save this first, just to make sure that this has calculated a value. Alright, as you can see here, now it calculates a single value here. And what I want to do now is to calculate this, or multiply that with the needle value. Maybe I can just say here, constant needle value equals data, and that's from this here, the object, then we say data sets index 0 dot the needle value, and the needle value of course is this value here. So what I want to do is I want to grab this needle value and put that needle value in here. So it calculates first the number, this is number 18, and then it will calculate whatever my value is. And let's see here, my needle value. Well, I don't need to divide that. This will be divided first, but then I need to multiply with my value. That makes sense, of course, because we first divided by 18, because that's the value of this, and then we calculate with how much the value exactly is. So if I save this, refresh, we should get a value here, and this is 0.5, which is correct, because we are working here with a 1 pi, because 1 pi equals a half slice. So if I have a half slice and now I'm at a quarter, that's 0.5. Alright, so if this works, what I want to do next is start to create the rotation. So ctx dot, and I'm going to say here rotate, and I'm going to say here the rotation will be based on the angle, and the angle is the math.py multiplied by whatever the value is of my circumference of the needle. So now if I save this, refresh, alright, we're getting close, but you might say, well, hold on, what's going on here? Well, we need to probably calculate the starting point here, because it will go here, probably because of the starting point. So what I need to do here is to recalculate this. Alright, I made a tiny mistake here, and something caught me slightly off guard. So let me explain. So right now it is here, but it goes in here, and it starts at 0.5, I guess that's this one here. What I want to do, I need to rotate this like 1. So 1 pi means it starts at the other side. So what I did forgot about, because you can see here I have this in parentheses, so this doesn't make sense. So let's start to do first and solve some of the mistakes here. If I do this, save, refresh, alright, that doesn't change at all. What I need to do here is this circumference, I need to calculate this. I'm going to say here the needle value, well, not needle value, let's call needle value angle, will be the circumference. And then we're going to say here, plus, I'm going to say 1.5 right now, because I'm not sure why it's responding kind of weird. I'm going to grab this, put it in here. I thought it would be 1 only for the rotation, but it starts here. So if I do this, there we are. So now we have a nice rotating angle. And what I want to do now is let's change this into a new value. Let's make this 10. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change all of these values. I say 33, 33, 33. Scroll down here. And then refresh. So 33. Alright, interesting. Alright, so my apologies, it works perfect. And the reason why I was so confused, I was thinking it should be here on 33, but of course it's not the case. Why? I'm using here the needle value of 10. If it's needle value of 10, it should be maybe, yeah, I guess somewhere here 1/3 of this. So if I do here 33, let's check. There we are. If I do 66, there we are. If we do 99, it should hit here the very end. If I do 100, it should be overlapping it basically, or it should be passing. Sorry. Then as you can see here, if it's 100, it surpasses it. Of course, you should not be 100. But if I do here, not 66, what is the 99? That will be 4550, I think, or 45. Sorry, should be in the center or almost in the center. Oh, sorry, my calculation is so off. 49. Yeah, I need to practice my calculation. There we are. Works perfectly now in the center, and that's it.